We're back in Investor Channel's headquarters in San Diego, California. I'm your host, Daniel Wong. On today's program, we have the CEO of the NGO Xchange, as well as the president of the Blockchain Leadership Council, Cameron Nelson, here with us today. Cameron, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me.
Cameron, let's jump right into it. So you've got this NGO Xchange, you're helping nonprofits. Tell us about that.
So, I've worked in the nonprofit sector for over 8 years, and I've also been a technology consultant in Silicon Valley, and I've seen an intersection of where technology, especially cryptocurrencies, can solve some of the biggest problems nonprofits face. Currently, the nonprofit industry in the U.S. is a $2.2 trillion a year industry, and it's very underserved by technology platforms. The NGO Xchange is the first cryptocurrency targeted to solve the nonprofit sector's largest financial and operational problems. And the way it works is it allows nonprofits to transfer money from their headquarters, say it's in Washington, D.C., to their field offices around the world and save millions and millions of dollars on their exchange rate and financial transaction fees. Currently, the nonprofit sector as a whole in the U.S. spends over $50 billion a year on financial transaction fees. And by using the NGO coin, with our low fees, that can be reduced to about $3 billion. So those are the savings that we're talking about, and that's what we're trying to get the nonprofits in the U.S. on board with the platform so they can realize the savings. Our mission is to multiply nonprofits' impact, and we want to do that by helping them save money, lower their overhead expenses, and be able to provide more funds and time to their programs.
That's a great idea. I mean, obviously, the whole point of this, right, is to get to the people in need. And if we're paying these things in fees and you're saving that much money, I don't see why people wouldn't adopt it. So that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, and it's something that's been sorely needed. The nonprofit industry has really not updated financial or banking mechanisms in decades. So with the advent of blockchain and cryptocurrency, the time is just really perfect for this to take off.
Does this also apply to, we've heard of, other charities out there where they're more of a profit machine than an actual charity. Will this help make those transactions and make, people donating or contributing there feel more that the money's going to the right people?
Well, any nonprofit organization that sends money across borders can benefit. It doesn't matter if they're receiving donations from around the world and they're going to a headquarters in Washington, D.C., or if they're receiving donations from a U.S. donor base and their headquarters in Washington, D.C., for example, needs to send that to Africa, to Asia, to Latin America. What we do is we help to bypass the traditional banking network like any cryptocurrency would, but we have special safeguards and regulations in place that just help us maintain the accountability that nonprofits need for their donors.
Makes perfect sense, and that's why the blockchain is so valuable, right? Now let's go into the Blockchain Leadership Council. You're the president there, and you're doing a lot of work within that and creating that, council there. Tell us about that.
Yes, so the Blockchain Leadership Council is a platform where entrepreneurs and inventors and developers can get together and talk specifically about the ethical implications of blockchain. Everybody's aware that Bitcoin got its start with really illegal activities, and it still has this connotation with a lot of people of something slightly illegal. I believe that really hinders its adoption in new industries across the world. So the Blockchain Leadership Council's goal is to provide thought leadership on ethical uses of the technology. We publish a quarterly research paper where we highlight our discussions and we highlight what we have, what's come out of them. So it's just really a place to get together twice a month. We talk virtually in big Google Hangouts, people all over the world. We have academics, we have business leaders, we have developers, and it's just really to develop the thought leadership around that.
And that makes perfect sense because there is kind of that stigmata still that goes along with cryptocurrencies, and they don't really understand it. All they know is it just when there's an unknown, there's obviously comes with doubt and things of that nature. So it's great that you're doing that. That's obviously why we're here. We're here to try to help educate people the same way. So happy you're doing that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure as you think too that there's just a big need for thought leadership around this right now. Who knows what regulations are happening? ICOs have been banned by China, South Korea lately. I mean, people are very worried about, is this legal? And so as well as governments doing their work to regulate, we want to do our work to provide thought leadership within the industry, specifically in the United States, but from people all over the world, because it's going to take a community to flesh this out in 2018 and to really get it pushed to new industries and applications throughout our lives.
I completely agree with you, and for good reason. They're coming down on these ICOs without the regulation there, and so people need to be careful when they're looking to invest in these and look for certain red flags to potentially not have any harm done to their investment.
Yeah, exactly. And with the astronomical increase of cryptocurrencies this year and just in the last few weeks especially, red flags are going up through governments all over the world thinking, is this a giant scam that's going to derail their economies? Venezuela is launching a national cryptocurrency pegged to their petroleum industry to benefit from this trend. So governments are taking this in all different ways. And 2018 is going to be the year to see which regulations succeed, which fail, and really how this whole game plays out.
Okay, so crypto markets are exploding, and now you have regulations and governments. We always thought it was a decentralized system. Why are people so afraid? I mean, obviously, when we start talking about cutting out these banks, we start seeing the concern there. Where do you see that heading?
Well, like any technology disruption of a traditional workforce, think of Uber disrupting the taxi drivers. The taxi drivers weren't happy about that, yet Uber has done very well. They've had their setbacks. Cryptocurrency, similar. The banks are very unhappy of anybody invading their turf. Some are getting on board, developing their own solutions. Some are not. I think everybody's a little unsure of the technology maturity. There seem to be some scalability issues. There's security issues. There's a very few handful of people who are real experts in cryptocurrency in the world. So banks are looking at this thinking this could be a giant risk, but also even a bigger risk if they ignore it altogether.
Well, Cameron, I think that's about all the time we have for today, but we really appreciate your insight. We'd love to have you back on again the show soon, especially when you'll be launching this NGO Exchange here in the next 109 days or so. We'll have you back on and give us some updates, but thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Folks, that was CEO Cameron Nelson, president of Leadership Blockchain Leadership Council, as well as the NGO Exchange. And folks, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and we'll catch you next time. Stay tuned for the next interviews here on InvestorTownHall.com.